Hey Andres, how are you doing over there?
So good
Very early
morning,
for you as
everybody,
well.
or good afternoon for you guys. Pretty good. Yeah, but we're doing a lot of projects. So I have some nice lemon coffee tea. So supposedly more caffeine, so I should be fine.
Yeah, that was one of the topics from yesterday. But yeah, we all meanwhile know how much caffeine is in there. Yeah, Andres, your presentation is about the
Yes.
allopathy and the influence of shade growing and shade trees and the interaction of soil.
Not really,
Not
but
really.
we can change it if you like. But it's
No, I
about
think that would be
it's
maybe
about
I
real
have an old version, you
sustainable
know.
farming. Yeah, it's about real sustainable farming in tune with nature.
In tune with nature. Then I was guessing that part was maybe an older
So there
version
will
of
be some.
presentation. Next time then.
Yeah,
But please, yeah, I think if there is any questions, feel free to write it down in all the chats. If it is YouTube or here at the Intergastra, please feel free. And unless I hope, yeah, we have a nice presentation with you, and I will put you on the screen now. No, you already are, but the stage is yours.
perfect. If you can let me know when my PowerPoint is showing.
Yeah, we can see your contact address now. It's like a yeah card.
Perfect.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
Excellent. So I was told to do real sustainable farming in tune with nature. And I guess the first thing is in order to do some farming, you need a farm. So this is our farm or one of our farms that we're going to use as an example. Um, and it's this top corner up in the mountain at 1,400 meters. So as I was saying, in order to be sustainable, you need a farm, and this is how you quickly create a coffee farm. So in this case, it was an abandoned farm, whereas you can see these trees are not very sustainable at this moment. Not very cherries or any leaves. This was in 2013 during the rust crisis, one of many crises that coffee farmers deal with. Um, but basically, as we took this land, we pruned the trees, and as you can see, there's branches everywhere, all over the ground. And that's not to be messy, but that is to kind of cover the soil with something so that when the weeds come out, they'll have a harder time reaching the sunlight. So um, you'll be able to slow down the weeds, and then when we do our weed control by hand, there'll be less and less every year. So again, this is how the coffee farm was, and obviously you can see it doesn't look very healthy at all. So the first thing we do is we need the seeds, and as Thomas said, a big thing for us is genetics. So I, as a farmer, will be married to this plant for 30, 40 years. Like Thomas just said, his plants are 40 years. So literally, his father, Thomas, has been a lot longer with those coffee plants than with Bruno, his son. So it's a very important decision. Another question that they talked is about flavors. It's kind of like if you want a red apple, you need a red apple tree. A green apple will never create the red apple flavor. Same things with varieties. Since we in our farm try to create flavors, we diversify our varieties in order to create more flavors. So genetics are extremely important for us. After 2 months of kind of growing, these kind of lettuce looking like are coffee trees, and we will move them from here, check one by one, and dispose of whatever we don't seem that we might like. So, for example, on the left side is how we are taking them out of the sand, and then all these plants. Oh, okay. In the middle picture, have you can see that they're kind of narrow on this side. So that's a local fungus that's everywhere. It's unavoidable. So we'll do a hand selection and dispose of them. As you can see that we threw these out here. And we will put them in smaller bags, one in each bag. Every farmer is different. Some try 2 in a bag to kind of save money. We prefer to do 1 by bag to give that plant as much as an environment as we can. And that's how they end up looking when they're in the bag. And as they keep growing, it takes about, for us, 3 months, but in other places it might take 6, it might take 9 months, depending on the altitude of where the nursery is, and also depending on how they work their nursery. So here you see, this is a picture after 3 months where the root system is already starting to show up at the bottom of the bag. So this lets us know that it's ready to be transplanted. And here you can see, we call them crosses, but basically it'll have like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And this is an ideal plant because it has 5 crosses, but also they're very short. So they're about 20 to 25 centimeters tall. And this means it won't get damaged during transportation to the farm. Sometimes farmers, because of lack of knowledge, prefer the bigger plants. But we want the plant to grow in the field and not in the nursery. And in the nursery, we want to grow the root system. So this is Nettie. She's in charge of the nursery. And when these plants kind of look like this, you see they're very evenly. We don't see a random tall tree in between the nursery, so it shows good genetics, and these are all the same variety. So if I have different varieties, they will kind of look, some might be skinnier and taller, or they'll have different tones of green. So it's important to keep the varieties separate and not confuse them in the nursery, because if they arrive to the farm already with the wrong name, it'll take a while before we notice. And once we planted, we're kind of married to these plants for 30, 40 years, where it's not like a house plant where I can move a little to the left or a little to the right. Here you see the holes. So obviously, if we make a mistake with a hole in the distance, it's not like we can move them after once they're planted. Here we're unloading the truck, and this is how we take them into the farming place. And then you still see the branches hanging out everywhere that I mentioned before. And we'll cut the plastic bag, which we'll later take to, we'll return it to get recycled and not leave it in the farm. And then we'll plant it in the field, cover the plant. And then this is what they look like about 2 years later. So this is the same row on the left, in the left side of the picture. So they're growing healthy. Part of it has to do with, we created a good root system, so it has like a good mouth to eat. And here you'll already see a bunch of shade trees that when we prune the shade, we spread the leaves. And again, this is for weed control. We do see some like weeds hanging around, but they're very little. So when we cut the weeds by hand, it'll be kind of easier. So this way, we don't have to use chemical herbicides. So for example, Most of our customers don't like glyphosate or Roundup in our coffee, so we don't use it. However, a lot of farmers use it because it's, in their eyes, might be simpler in the sense that they'll spray and the weeds will die. Our processes are very long term, but we feel that they're more sustainable with nature. Another thing that most uh, people don't know is that as you spray these herbicides, the coffee plant is intoxicated, and depending on the herbicide that you use, the plant cannot absorb certain micronutrients. So, uh, because they're micro, sometimes people don't consider them very important, but it needs a very small amount, but that very small amount is very important. So, for example, to compare it with humans, I need very little sodium, um, but I need that sodium for to be able to digest and for many things. If I'm missing the sodium, I won't be able to absorb other nutrients. So these are the plants, and here we see them blossoming 3 years later, which of course you still see the leaves spread out. You still see some weeds we have to collect, but they're very few and far away, far between. Um, and in the background, you see a bunch of trees. To give you an idea, a hectare will have around 5,000 coffee trees and probably around between, depending on how much water amount you get. So, for example, Bruno's farm will be a lot different than mine because normally he'll get 5 or 6 meters of rain and I will get two. So, I need more shade to cover the soil to because he's having to dry the soil. I'm having to keep it wet because of the local climate. And because of this, we probably have between 500 to 1,500 different types of shade trees and wood trees that, in combination with the coffee trees, they create like a microclimate and ecosystem because the plants or the trees are not just giving us shade, it's also giving us an ecosystem for insects and birds that interact in this ecosystem and in a way makes my life easier because nature it takes care of the pest instead of having to spray insecticides. So this is the plants blossoming. This is a Central America variety. These were the one on the right is a Bourbon, and both on the left are Pacamaras. And as you can see, we're very in tune with nature. When it blossoms, the bees come out and hang out. Um, and you can kind of see on the upper left, we have a bug bite, which in most farms would be seen as a negative. We think that it's a positive because if the insects are willing to eat it, then I'm willing to drink it. Um, but basically, we have to create a balance where there will be insects. I don't want to spray and kill all the insects. I want them because we have good insects and negative insects that we'll see up ahead. So I have to create this balance, and not every leaf will be perfect, and some will be eaten. So we tried to follow like a 2 to 5%, where if it's creating above a 5% in the farm, then our ecosystem is unbalanced, and we probably have to get like another predator um, that to combat the insect that is now becoming a pest instead of somebody who's hanging out. Here you see again more leaves, more bug bites, and more bees during the blossoming. Um, yeah. So a close up of the bee uh, getting on the nectar. We actually keep honeybees in the farm, one for additional income, diversifying our income, not just relying on the coffee, but also the honey. But the bees also help us as by monitoring the bees' hives, seeing how the bees, if they're healthy or not, so monitoring their colony population and how they're doing. We can also kind of find out what's happening in our farm and around us because the bee will go about 3 to 6 kilometers. So he's not just eating from our farm, but where he has enough food in our farm, he won't have to go too far. So more blossoming. Uh, that's me in the farm. We have these big ebony trees that they're huge. To give you a perspective, this shade tree next to it, it's about 10 meters. And you can see that the tree keeps going. And all these combination of trees create a microclimate in each area, which enhance, because of the allelopathy, it changes the flavors, even if it's the same variety, but it has different growing conditions, will have different flavors. So this is one of the farms from far away in a drone picture. And as we kind of get close, you start seeing rows of the coffee trees, but you start seeing that there are a lot of trees, and in some areas more than others. And they have different tones of green. Part of it is because there are different shade trees and different wood trees. So, for example, these, um, like the ones that are here, are all avocados. These are more Ingas and different varieties. And we have zapotes and we have over 60 different types of shade trees. And part of the reason we do this is to do a little biodiversity. This is a drone video that I like because it shows how much biodiversity is when we just planted the coffee trees. This is a ceiba, which the natives used to make paper. But you can see they're inside like a little forest. And as those plants grow, also shade trees that we planted new grow. And you see, like, for example, these are Ingas that are blossoming. Wait, sorry. Uh-huh. Wanted to pause it for a second. So, like these plants, you notice that they don't have as much leaves of, let's say, this one. This one, all the leaves are gone, but then these have leaves. Part of that has to do again with sustainability. Some insects prefer some varieties of shade trees, and as they eat one, the others are providing shade. So they're kind of, instead of us having to go up the tree and prune this season, they're kind of helping us. And it's a lot easier for insects to climb trees than for humans. So it's very sustainable for us, and beneficial to work with nature instead of carrying a ladder or a rope to climb all the trees. And that's another reason why it's important to have different varieties of trees, because you don't want that all the shade is gone at one point. Um, so then this is again a Inga that's blossoming, and you'll see a couple as it dries by. In the bottom, there's fresh, new planted coffee trees that are growing. And you see that some trees, again, have less shade than others or different thickness of vegetation. And what we're trying to do is create 70% shade and 30% sunlight during the day. This has changed with climate change due to, well, climate change. Uh, where before we were trying to have 50% sun and 50% shade, but now because of longer droughts, warmer temperatures, less rain amounts during the rainy season. So what that means is during the year we might get the average rainfall. However, they'll be concentrated in short time lapses. So for example, 2019, during the rainy season, we had over 55 days of a drought, which the plant goes into like hormone crazy because it's expected to have water at a time where there's no water. So it's confused. So it kind of creates some problems. In some cases, it might abort the coffee seeds because, okay, I'm going to die and I can't deliver all the seeds. So I'm going to have to get rid of some in order for some to survive to get to ripeness. So you see some insects flying around. I don't know. I think hopefully you can hear the birds chirping. Where there is these ecosystem where you have the coffee trees, shade trees, and wood trees, and obviously this brings in insects and birds and wildlife, deers, coyotes, porcupines, skunks, a bunch of insects. Um, this is right before the rainy season when we prune the shade trees. So you can see that we've shortened it. But by working with nature and not spreading pesticides, I don't kill the good insects that will help me prune the shade tree. So it's less work for us. These are three different coffee varieties. And as you can see, they have some beans. And again, the leaves are not perfect. There's some bug bites here on the right side. And that's kind of what we kind of look for, that a nature is not perfect in the sense that everything looks the same. Even here, you see that we have very large beans, but we also have very small beans. And this will create that we're gonna have to come to the same tree to pick 2 or 3 times because not all the beans will be ripe at the same time, which makes it a little harder, but again, it's part of nature. What happened in this case is that it rained a little, so it blossomed a little. Then it rained a little bit more, so it rained a little bit more. Um, the way I kind of compare it is like instead of filling up your tank to drive 400 kilometers, you're filling up your gas tank every 100 or 3 times. The first time you put 5 liters, so very quickly you had to get more gas again, and then you got 20 liters, so you got a little bit further, and kind of like that is similar to what's happening with um, the coffee trees, and this is why we're getting so different coffee. So here you see, for example, we have a full-grown cherry, but then here this one recently blossomed less than a month ago. And then this one probably has about 3 months or 2 to 3 months, and this is like 4 to 5. So again, this is happening because of climate change, and we're have to adapt to where now the plant might need additional nutrition. So again, this is me in the farm, and as you can see in the background, background, we have a volcano, and sometimes volcanoes erupt. So this was in 2013, um, and as you can see, it's pretty nearby the farm. We just had an ash eruption, nothing to be over concerned. It's not like we melted with lava or something like that. Um, but as you see, all this ash going up has to come down at some point, and it did in our farm. And what this did was covered the farm in ashes. So we had to go around to shake the trees to get the ash out of the trees before it rained. Because if it rained, the combination of the rain with the ash will be super acidic and kill the plants. And also, so super bad, obviously, for the plants. But what this did was that it killed insect, a spider to be specific, that eats another spider called the red spider. And what this red spider does is, this is the red spider, and this is super zoomed in a coffee leaf. And what this plant, red spider has is, it has a super fast reproductive rate. So basically, in a 3 reproduction cycle, and each reproduction cycle might be 15 days. So if you have one in 45 days, you have over 62 billion. And the way we naturally control it is, one, rainfall gets rid of them, but two, we have other insects that eat them. However, unfortunately, with the ash, it killed the predator. And what these spiders do is they'll eat the top part of the leaf. Here you can see it looks like burn. What has happened is that the red spider ate the top part of the green leaf. So it's kind of like, these are the solar panels for the plant, and it kind of burned or broke the solar panel. So now it cannot produce photosynthesis, but the bottom part is still there to get some rust. So the way we combat it is, we made insect nests instead of using insecticides, which would kill the red spider, but it would also kill other insects that we use to control other pests. So sometimes the common solution might be more harmful in the long run. So this Chrysoperla carnea eats the red spider. So this is him before he gets his wings. He kind of looks like that, not very pretty, however, very effective of eating the red spider. So we wanted more young ones, and so we kind of, and this is the one of the insects that died off because of the ash from the eruption. This is a locust, so that's Miguel's hand, and you can see he looks pretty big. He's kind of missing the head because he was flying and they hit it with a machete, but they'll eat the top part of the cherries. This is a different type of insect that is like, he has benefits of having them in the farm, because he will eat insects that eat the leaves and eat the outer skin of the cherries. So he's hanging out in the cherries. So we joke around that these are our most cost benefit workers, because they don't charge much and they protect the farm 24 hours. They don't have a schedule. This is our insecticides. So when you walk through the farm, you'll see a bunch of spiders. Um, the one on the left is a rust dot, and you can see that it has a spider there, and that rust dot is this rust dot. So you can kind of see how zoomed in it is. And sometimes we have to get really close to find out what we have. So of course, if I wasn't really trying to get a nice picture of the rust, I would have never found out that we have that little spider. And then doing some research with other insectologists, he told me, yeah, that spider is eating also the red spider. So if I would have sprayed the insecticide, maybe it would have stopped in the short term the red spider, but in the long term, I would also get rid of the beneficiary insects that help me protect and do my pest control. So I would I would get into this cycle of a new pest, a new insecticide, a new pest, a new insecticide. So for the long run, we feel that this is more in tune with nature, and it's a lot more sustainable because it creates a better coffee flavor, because I'm not spreading insecticides and herbicides in the farm, but also because they can control those pests. So this is when you're walking through the farm, you'll see a couple of spider webs, which are very common. So this spider web was from the first, from this guy, from this spider. And they're not poisonous, they're not harmful to humans. They're more afraid of us than we are of them. So it's not like it's a problem. So they're very helpful in doing our insect controls. Here we have a little bug in the cherries. So there's some more. And some of these, as you can see, like these are the beans. You can kind of get an idea of how small they are. Smaller than the coffee cherry. And a lot of times this is why in the coffee, it's very unstudied and nobody really talks about these insects because not everybody sees them. You're kind of looking for them. So these are some locusts. On the left is my hand. So you kind of see that the locust is almost the size of my hand. And then on the right side, we caught two that were mating. Unfortunately, we don't eat them like in Mexico, so I can't open up a restaurant and fry them and sell them. So they're very harmful in the sense that they not only eat the leaves, but they also eat the outer skin of the cherries. And these cherries are basically ruined because they were still growing and they'll never ripen. And obviously, the skin is not protecting the beans. So basically, we're taking a loss on them. So they do become a problem. And the way here you see some leaf bites and some beans, how they chew them. And again, the way to combat them is we'd make other insects. So, for example, we have uh, insects that will eat them. We also have a specific tree that a bird nests only in that tree, and that bird controls the grasshoppers and the locusts for us. And sometimes, if we have like a plague, which has happened more often because of climate change, we'll put bamboo traps where the grasshoppers and the locusts will go inside the bamboo during the day because it's dark and it's dry. And then we'll go around the farm collecting them, putting them in a bag, and then that bag filled with grasshoppers and bugs and locusts will we'll throw it in the chicken coop, and the chickens will eat a lot of protein and control in this way the insects or the locusts. You can't really see it on the left side, but in the back of my shirt, I had a branch, which on the right side you can kind of see close up. It's insect that pretends to be a coffee branch. Like Bruno's dad said, yeah, in Mexico they call them insecto de palito, like stick figure insect. And there's many of these in the farm, but as you can tell, they do a good job of camouflaging. And a lot of these are insect eaters, so they're helpful. And we wouldn't be able to have these if, again, we're using insecticides to control one insect, but we would kill a lot of others. So more insects. We call this guy Fosforito, which is like a match because he has a red tip in his backside. So a bunch of butterflies. These are the eggs underneath the coffee leaf. So the bug next to the branch. That's a rhinoceros escarabajo. I forget the English word. So this guy is very interesting. So his eggs will hatch during the rainy season, and there'll be millions upon millions in the farm during the rainy season. And within a week, so less than 7 days, they will eat all the leaves from the ingot trees. So here you can see that you see a bunch of trees with just branches basically. Here's a close-up. And they won't eat all the shade trees, but they'll eat every ingot tree, every single leaf, which is not a negative thing because we're, again, working in tune with nature. And what this does is, one, whatever he eats, he has to poop out. So it's providing fertilizer for future plants, for our future years. They're putting a lot of organic material into the soil, which is beneficial. We save in fertilizer. But also, since it happens during the rainy season, you can see it's very cloudy while this is happening. And what that does is that we don't have to, we're getting more shade because of the clouds, because the sun is not able to penetrate into the coffee trees. So this insect eats the leaves, and as you can tell, there are a lot of trees, and it would be very hard for us to go up every single tree to prune more of the shade tree. So he does this for us, where he's gonna go into the shade trees, and then prune them during the rainy season, when is the ideal time where we need less shade. So it's one way, again, to in a way be sustainable, because the insects don't have a high salary, and they do a very good job, as you can see, pruning the shades trees. And this is, again, why we need an ecosystem, and it has to be biodiverse, because if I only had ingot trees, like for example, let me see if I can pause it, you can see here that these shade trees haven't been eaten at all, but the ingots have. Um, and that's why we have different types of shade trees. So as you might know, this is the moon, and a lot of the work we do, we following old Mayan beliefs, and some of those beliefs included the moon, so that you have to farm with the moon. So they talk about two different types of moon, like a full moon and a new moon. And basically, during one, if you cut a plant, it has to do with the water. And during one type of moon, it'll close, kind of like coagulate the water and seal the cut of the plant. And in the other, the water will be very liquid, so the water will come out. So depending on what you're trying to do, you want to use the moon. So for example, this is peanuts and some rosemary, and we use it to cover the topsoil. As you can see, the coffee trees are to the right and to the left, and you can't really see the soil because the peanuts have taken over. Since they are a good weed, we want to prune them during the time that the water will close so that it won't dry out the peanuts, and we'll get more peanuts. So you'll see that up a little head. These are like a fake mint. Um, Here you see the leaves spread out. So when we do the weed control, we'll do it during the phase of the moon that the water will get the plant. Once you cut it, will get rid of it. So if I cut a weed, basically it's like it'll bleed out. So whatever water it had, it'll come out and it'll dry off. And then in the long term, this creates, it allows the coffee tree to not fight over nutrients, and it's a more sustainable way in the sense that over time there'll be less weeds because they'll leave less seed. So as time goes by, it gets easier and easier. Here you see again the coffee trees with the shade trees and the wood trees. Um, Again, this is the one on the left is our pacamaras, and you see that we pruned one row. So we left one row, we pruned one row, we left one row, we pruned one row. And this is a 1-year-old prune. And again, we use the moon phase, so we cut it during the time that the water will quickly close so that it'll be faster to, the word in Spanish is retoñar, but basically to come out. And interesting thing is, this is a neighbor, a friend that he's getting back in his farm, and this tree had been pruned 10 years ago. And we were talking about the moon phase, and he said, yeah, we pruned it 10 years ago, and we fertilized, and we did this and that, and it's also a pacamara, and we can't really see why it won't work. So we went to his farm, and we ripped the tree out, and we noticed that, okay, even if you pruned it wrong, after 10 years, it should have some cherries, but by ripping it off, we were able to see the root system. And the first thing is that it has a really bad root system. It should have more comilonas, which are smaller root systems that hang out. I was able to rip it out of the soil, which means it wasn't really anchored in correctly. But what we could see here is that, let me see if I can mark it, in this area of the trunk, it felt like narrower when you touched it. And part of the reason is because during the nursery, this plant had 22 years old. So in the nursery 22 years ago, it had that fungus that I showed you in the first pictures, that it made the plant narrow. And because of that, it wasn't allowing food to go through the root system. And it gives you a short time where the plant is dying off because it cannot create the nutrients. And since it can't create nutrients, it won't be able to give cherries. So clearly very unsustainable. This again is like when we prune the peanuts. I think this is the peanuts, but here, this is how when they regrew, you see they're very green and very healthy looking. The ones on the right is when we prune. We leave them there. It's not like we carry them out, and that'll be organic material that dies off, goes into the soil. And this plant is also putting in that the coffee will use. Um, these are some fake mints. Uh, again, the coffee, where you can see that you have yucca trees, you have coffee trees, we have shade trees, and of course, cherries. So at the end of the day, we are a coffee farm, and in order to be sustainable, we have to create a product, which in our case is coffee beans that you guys will roast, and somebody's eventually gonna drink. So working with nature, we're able to create a better product because the plant is healthy, is not intoxicated either through herbicides or insecticides. Um, so these are coffee drying. And something very important for us is that when people talk about sustainability, everybody talks about us, the farmer. Because, of course, if we can't afford to get our food, we're not going to be very sustainable in our coffee farm. But rarely do people talk about the barista sustainability or the coffee shop. And at least in our case, we're able to sustain with direct trade. That's why you see a bunch of flags in the patio. And what ended up happening is, okay, we export our coffee. It arrives, in this case, in Germany, and it gets smaller lots get spread to small coffee roasters and coffee shops. Um, this is me talking with Thomas, exchanging ideas on sustainability. You can see that his nursery is different than mine, and that's okay because we're adapting to each person's circumstance. So this is in Mexico. But coming back to what I was saying with the sustainability, rarely do people talk about the coffee shop sustainability. And the reality is that if the coffee shop, if these customers that we see here cupping stop going to the local coffee shops that buy coffees from us, if they close, they won't be able to buy coffees that we produce, and hence we won't be sustainable because we just lost the customer. So, in order to be sustainable, we need good farming practices, uh, but we also need steady customers that value the extra steps we take to work more in tune with nature that obviously in some times might have a higher cost. So for example, after the eruption, putting the insect trap, not traps, but insect housings was a lot more expensive than spraying insecticide. But we believe, and it was confirmed, seeing our neighbors' problems that they had after, that we did the correct solution. Also, putting the bamboo traps for the locusts or the grasshoppers. We have to walk all around the farm. The farms are about 90 hectares. So we have to walk the 90 hectares every day, collecting the bamboo traps that we put near the pathways to collect the insects instead of, again, spraying. But will create these flavors. And also these coffee shops, if they're just selling whatever the neighbor's selling, through these different steps that we take, we're able to provide a better coffee, and they're able to have loyal customers because they can't find the same cup flavors in the other coffee shops. And this is why they're willing to pay a little bit more in the cup, because the baristas and the roasters and coffee shops, since we're direct trade and we're in constant communication through WhatsApp, through Skype, through events like today, they know what happens in the farm. They get pictures of the trees of their lot, not of a random picture in the farm. And we're in these WhatsApp groups together now with technology where I'm posting these and they're aware of, that I had a volcano eruption, or that we are getting these insect that's destroying the coffee cherries, but we are controlling the pest through these types of methods. Through direct trade is really how we're able to be sustainable, at least in our case. These are the people who pick the coffee, who process the coffee, who take care of the plants, who plant the trees, who take care of the insects that in hand take care of us. And through all of us working together with nature is how, in our case, we're able to be sustainable. So thank you for your time. And if anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Oops.
Andrés, thank you very much for this presentation here.
Yeah.
My pleasure. Yeah. We have one question which is coming from Pat. So say hi to Pat.
Okay. Hi, Pat.
Hey. The question was the differences in shade growing and fully sun if it comes for flavor. I don't know if you want to start. I have an opinion on that as well.
Would you like to start?
Okay, yeah.
I guess, and then I'll take over.
Okay, great. I think the main part is coming from the acidity due to the temperature exchange while day and nighttime. And the other thing is that we have a completely changed density of the bean due to shade growing. And that will change the whole roasting profile. And of course, that will change flavors as well. So that would be my answer for that question, but maybe you have more to add.
Yeah. To be honest, I really can't talk much about sun growing coffee because the reality is my conditions won't allow me to grow sun-grown coffees. So my experience would be more limited. The reality is, in our location, where we've actually had to increase shade trees. So we went from having 50% sun and 50% shade during the daytime, and coffee trees were dying out of heat exhaustion, and they were getting sunburned because of the excess temperatures of climate change. So now we've had to increase the shade trees to make it cooler and lower that amount of sunlight, which does lower the production, but it also makes for more intense flavors and more more dense bare cherries, because the plant has less cherries to spread the nutrients around. So there will be definitely a difference with the flavor. However, in our location in El Salvador, in our farm, we wouldn't be able to have cherries at full sun exposure. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Andrés. And then there is one more comment it's still Pat, and she would like to know if you could have, if you would say how much percentage would be shaded in, is it 70-30 or is it different?
So again, it'll be different for everybody. We have about 70-30, but it has to do with our local conditions and climate. So like I said, in the past 5 years, we went from like 50-50 to 70-30. If we go to Hamburgo, they're further up north of the equator. Their rain amounts are a lot more than mine, more than double. So they're getting shade through the clouds more time during the year. So they're going to need less shade trees to provide the same shade or sun amount because they're getting help from the clouds. So they're going to have to adapt it to their local needs. So even though if you see their shade trees, maybe it's 40% of the amount of shade trees that I have. But when we measure how the plants are doing, they'll be the same because they're getting that extra 30% from the clouds, and they have more humidity. So in that sense, it'll change again depending on where you're at. Are you north or south of the equator? How far away you are from the equator, and what is your rain amounts? Are you getting typhoons or are you getting really light rain? So all these factors will change how you use the shade trees.
Okay, thank you. Andrés, it was a pleasure having you here this early in the morning.
Yeah, pleasure is mine.
Hope you can find some more rest or have a siesta by noon or something. I hope you will find some more rest this day, or more cups of coffee. Wait. Dr. Schäfer has one more question or something to add, please.
Hi. I just want to say it was a fantastic presentation. And I just saw that meanwhile, you are also a fantastic entomologist. And I was just thinking about if we would like to do another presentation on coffee, maybe next year on Intergastra. You know that we are a zoological and botanical garden. So maybe it might be interesting to show some insects which are adapted to coffee. I think this might be a very interesting project in future. I think we should be in closer contact during the next weeks. So you're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah, so we'll definitely do that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Schäfer.
Bye.
Okay. Andrés, once again, thank you. It was a very nice presentation. And hope we put you into this spot of the day. So we had some overtime without harshing through any other things. But now we are going to start to have a small cup tasting, which is also online. Maybe some of you are going to join. It was sent out in a small package. And Andrés, you will be hopefully attending the upcoming cup tasting with Amarella on the 15th. So 1 more week to go.
I will. Yeah.
Did the parcel meanwhile reach you?
It's on its way.
Okay. Great. Let's hope for the best then. Once again, thank you very much, Andrés. I'll have to run now. We will be back with the coffee symposium tomorrow by 11. And the first topic of the day will be the OCS, the home office coffee solution by Dr. Kashevi. You will find the whole program coming up in the stream, also on our brand page of the Digital Intergastra event. I'm very glad to say hello tomorrow again. see you. I hope you enjoyed it. If there is any more questions to come also from the past presentations, please let us know. We will contact the speakers, of course, and get some more information for you. Thank you very much, and see you tomorrow if you have the time to say hello again. Bye-bye.